So in working in endurance sports for a long time in coaching, I was always trying to like put together the way I view like what are we trying to do as coaches and prepare athletes to then go out and race. Well, there's an aspect here of we have to train, we have to have appropriate rest, but regardless of how effective we are in training and how well we rest and recover, some people just get better for the same amount of training. So a guy like Taylor Finney, having 2 Olympic medalist parents, has an advantage over most people from a genetic capacity, just from the starting point. So we look at those things to try to develop then the capacity to perform, to do work, to produce power for a given period of time, have certain skills. All of those things fall into the training aspect. When we go and compete, the performance is not directly linked exclusively to the capacity that we've built up. It's how we execute that, as well as then the tactics that we may employ, or occasionally the tactics that others employ against us. We can have great preparation, we can have good tactics on our own, but if we fail to execute, we don't have a great result. If we have great capacity built up, if we execute well, if we have good tactics but someone else has better tactics, we still lose. So this capacity is going to be some integration of a physiological preparation, a psychological preparation, and even a biomechanical preparation. I could add in a nutrition component, but to some degree that comes back to a physiological component. If you don't have adequate fueling and hydration, et cetera, that's going to kind of result in issues there. So physiological, a lot of times we get caught up in the metabolic and muscular conditioning side of coaching too much. And again, I'm a sports scientist, I'm a physiologist, I care a lot about those things, but they are not the be all end all. Make sure that you're looking across the spectrum, including the psychological realm. If the training that you're giving your athletes makes them more confident, they're going to be more capable. So that's a big part of it, and it doesn't just happen. You have to actually spend time on developing those mental skills as well with your athletes. And then a biomechanical aspect. So the patterns that we have, the movements, how we do things, ultimately comes down to the quality of movement. Some people just override poor mechanics with a bigger output and kind of get away with it, though potentially injuries come along, things like that impact their ability long term, or they never maximally optimize what's possible in some cases. So with motion analysis, we can look at a few things. I think about technique and how effective we are at a movement pattern. Again, cycling is kind of a simple model in some ways, keeping in mind that simple isn't always easy, right? The hour record. Go as far as you can in 1 hour. Well, that's kind of a simple task. But you break it down, it's not necessarily easy. You have to take into account a lot of different things. Technique, even in cycling, we are constrained and restrained with the crank and how that works and the movements that are possible, but how we integrate our neural patterns, how the athlete pedals, the positioning is going to be something there. What weakness, strengths that we see with the range of motion that is increased and decreased, especially with changes in intensity. How they pedal at 100 watts is probably different than how they pedal at 300 watts. How they pedal on a flat road versus a climb, standing, seated, all of these different things. And then asymmetry that we see, things that can definitely set us up for injury because of the repetitive nature of cycling. And then the effects of fit and positioning on the bicycle. And those contact points and how an athlete moves are very important in terms of quality of movement. So this is, in real time, the really cool part with the LEOMO Type R, that you have this available. The athlete can see this while riding. This is on a stationary trainer, so I wasn't putting anyone in danger here, but you can see it as you're riding as well outside, which is pretty interesting. Adds another element of things where, again, motion capture in the past, it's been a laboratory environment. It's very expensive, but very accurate, but again, a limited transfer when we go out into the real world.